Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into a collection of material you shared with us. A mix of psychology, philosophy, cultural commentary, all pointing to a very modern problem. This constant societal pressure to be happy. We're looking at what the sources are calling the modern paradox of happiness.
Yeah.
And it sounds a little absurd at first, right? I mean, no government has outlawed sadness.
No, of course not. But the central idea here is that the modern world has done something much more sophisticated. It hasn't banned sadness, but it has effectively morally criminalized it.
So it's not illegal, it's just shameful.
That's the perfect way to put it. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
Sadness has been made shameful. The sources really argue it's been transformed from this natural, inevitable part of being human.
A signal, even.
A signal, exactly, into what society now perceives as an emotional malfunction. It implies a failure of character, a failure to, optimize yourself.
Okay, let's unpack this. This brings us to the happiness mandate.
Yeah.
We're talking about a world where everything has to be fine. Not just fine, but like enthusiastically trending upward. And any suffering you encounter, it has to be immediately productive.
Yes. Suffering is only really acceptable if you can package it as inspirational right away.
Right.
It needs to show growth or become some kind of motivational story for other people. You can talk about pain, sure, but only if you immediately tell us the positive lesson you learned.
It's like demanding a butterfly to emerge 5 minutes after the caterpillar builds the cocoon.
That's a great analogy. And if you don't deliver that quick transformation, that tidy, social media ready resolution, well, that's where the shame comes in.
And that's the real danger here for you, the listener. Is that if you're just sad, sad for too long or sad without a clear, acceptable reason.
Or a tidy conclusion.
Right. Society just implies in these very subtle ways that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, a flaw you need to fix, quietly.
And you see it in the language we use, this subtle language of suppression.
Things like, just think more positively.
Or the big one, everything happens for a reason. And look, these things are often well-meaning, but they carry this implied command, don't they?
Totally. The subtext is, your sadness is inconvenient for me.
Yes. Stop staying in it. Move on.
And the sources show what happens next. People internalize it. They start to apologize for how they feel.
You hear it all the time. Sorry for being so negative, or I know I should be stronger than this.
When you have to say sorry for a natural human emotion,
Wow.
that's the moment happiness stops being an emotion and becomes a moral standard. If you're cheerful, you're good. You're functional, cooperative. If you're sad, you're failing at your job as a person.
And this connects to some of the philosophical sources you sent. Thinkers have been flagging this for a long time. Camus, for instance.
Right, with his idea of the absurd.
Yeah, the idea that life is inherently kind of meaningless. But for Camus, the problem wasn't the absurdity itself. That's just a fact of life. The problem, as the sources frame it, is that we're not allowed to actually look at it. We're always supposed to be manufacturing meaning or distracting ourselves.
And then Dostoevsky takes it even further. He basically suggests that a society that prohibits sadness is a society that fears truth more than it fears suffering.
It sounds extreme, but it makes sense. I mean, true, honest sadness, especially that deep existential kind, it forces you to ask what the sources call dangerous questions.
Okay, dangerous in what way? What makes a question dangerous to, say, productivity?
Well, these aren't small questions. There are fundamental challenges to the system. Like, why am I living like this, chasing these goals that feel so empty?
Or why do I have to pretend I'm okay when I'm clearly not?
Exactly. Or even, is the way our society is set up actually good for human beings?
And you can see right away why those questions are a problem. They are not good for business, not good for the smooth functioning of the world.
They're terrible for it because they require you to pause, to reflect, maybe even to demand change.
And if everyone did that, the whole machine would just grind to a halt.
So the system's solution is to thin out sadness, make it brief, make it tellable, make it pretty enough to post online and then get over it, preferably with a purchase or a pill.
Which is a perfect lead-in to the roots of this whole mandate. It strikes me that the constant, almost frantic conversation about happiness, the gurus, the apps, the articles, it's actually a sign of its absence.
It's a great point. When something is truly abundant, you don't need to talk about it all the time.
Right.
And that's because happiness has stopped being a spontaneous feeling and it's become a social project, a goal, a metric, a personal responsibility that you have to perform for everyone else.
And when you look at it through the lens of efficiency, happiness is an extremely efficient emotion.
It's the ultimate green light. It signals, I'm fine, I can work, I'm not causing any trouble, you don't need to slow down for me.
But sadness is the opposite. It is profoundly inefficient. It demands time, it demands presence, and worst of all, it demands listening without a quick fix.
And our world just can't tolerate that. It can't handle things that can't be solved in a meeting or with a single prescription. Sadness is slow, and in our culture, slow is a problem.
It's a glitch in the system.
It really is, and there's a psychological fear there too. Sadness feels like a loss of control, not just of your mood, but of your whole image. It slows your personal rhythm down.
And this is what fuels that whole happinessification machine in the media.
Oh, absolutely. Media outlets learned a long time ago that deep, messy sadness, it just doesn't hold attention. It's too heavy for the doom scroll.
So it has to be packaged.
It has to be packaged, it has to be inspirational, show progress, have a neat little arc. If a story about suffering can't be turned into a "you can do it too" headline, it gets buried.
And social media just puts that entire process on steroids. It turns emotions into a performance.
Yeah. A performance, that's the word. Sadness that can't be summed up in a caption or given a hashtag, just. It doesn't compute, it drifts away. You have to turn your trauma into a vulnerability post that still somehow ends with a strong, positive mantra.
Right. If you just post, "I feel fundamentally broken," you get crickets. But if you post, "I felt broken, and here are the 3 self-care steps that saved me."
Now you get engagement. And the most dangerous part of all this is that it becomes internal. It's not just external pressure anymore.
You mean self-censorship?
Internal self-censorship. You start measuring your own feelings against this impossible standard. You ask yourself, am I being too sad for this situation? Others have it worse. I should just get over it.
Which is a complete denial of your own reality.
It is. It reduces your sadness from a vital internal signal that you should probably listen to into just a flaw to be fixed. You basically learn not to trust what your own suffering is trying to tell you.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The long-term impact on the individual. The sources say that when sadness isn't legitimized, the first thing to break is your relationship with yourself. It creates this internal distance.
They call it the splitting of the self. The person literally fragments into 2 parts.
Okay, what are the 2 parts?
Well, there's the functional self. That's the public-facing one, the one who knows how to smile and say, I'm fine, thanks for asking. And maintaining that part takes a huge amount of energy.
And the other part?
The other part is, well, the real you. The silent, unacknowledged core where the real feelings are, the real processing. And it gets pushed down, hidden away, because it's not socially acceptable.
And the sources are very clear that suppressed sadness, it doesn't just go away.
No, it absolutely does not. It transforms. For a lot of people, it turns into chronic fatigue.
Not just being tired.
No, it's a deep exhaustion. It's the psychological labor of constantly maintaining that false self, that I'm fine facade. You're running a nonstop PR campaign for your own emotional state.
The energy drain from that must be immense.
It is. And for others, it doesn't become fatigue. It becomes emptiness. Not really sadness, not happiness, just a gray, muted feeling.
Disconnected.
Profoundly disconnected from your own internal signals, because you've spent years learning to override them with positivity.
And of course, this completely wrecks our relationships. How can you have true intimacy if you can't be vulnerable? If you're terrified of showing that undefined part of yourself?
You can't. Intimacy is built on unguarded truth. When you apply the happiness mandate to relationships, they become smooth and polite, sure, but they're hollow. They lack that critical layer where people are allowed to be unokay together.
And you see it happen. One person expresses real, messy sadness, and the other person immediately rushes to fix it.
They try to solve it, or minimize it, or distract from it, not because they're cruel, but because they've also been trained to be uncomfortable with that inefficiency of sadness. They don't know how to just sit with it.
Let's go back to the larger societal structure for a second. The forces seem to suggest the system isn't trained to be malicious.
No, not at all. It's simply optimizing for function. The world doesn't hate sad people. It just needs them to be stable enough to work and consume.
And deep existential sadness is the opposite of stable. It's disruptive.
It's disruptive, it's non-measurable, and therefore it's inconvenient. And the system solves this inconvenience by making it your problem.
It privatizes sadness.
Perfectly said. It privatizes it. The message is, your deep sadness is a personal glitch. Go fix it on your own time and with your own money, and then come back when you're ready to be functional again.
So this brings us to the big challenge. If the world won't give us the space to be authentically sad, how do we avoid betraying ourselves? Because as the sources, especially Dostoevsky, point out, you can't live in that falsehood forever. The price of pretending to be fine is just too high.
The key, I think, is to redefine what living with sadness even means. It's not about wallowing. It's not about withdrawing. It's about stopping that automatic reaction, that programmed impulse to treat sadness as a flaw that needs to be fixed and ejected immediately.
It's just letting it be there for a minute.
Letting it stay long enough to deliver its message. That's all.
And that's the huge distinction that the happiness mandate tries to erase, isn't it? The difference between being with sadness and sinking into it.
Yes, it deliberately confuses the two to scare us back into positivity. But being with sadness just means you can observe it. You don't have to become it. You can allow it to ask those hard questions without shame.
Questions like, what in my life is out of alignment right now?
What am I sacrificing to maintain this image? Exactly.
This sounds a lot like what Mises was talking about, that minimal honesty with life.
It's precisely that. The goal isn't constant happiness. That's impossible. The true freedom is the freedom to feel the wrong emotion, to be sad without shame, to be empty without rushing to fill the void. It's about refusing to play the emotional game society has set up.
So we come full circle to that core conflict. Our human need for honesty versus society's demand for functional positivity. And the biggest risk isn't the pain. Pains are going to happen. The real risk is becoming a stranger to yourself just to keep up appearances.
And that's the final takeaway from the sources. This happiness amplification is so powerful because it's subtle. It doesn't ban sadness. It just strips it of its legitimate place in our lives. It makes it invalid, forcing us to betray our own emotions in silence just to function.
It's a really powerful idea to end on. The next time you feel that pressure, that internal push to just smile and say, I'm fine, when you're not,
right?
Maybe just pass. The ultimate freedom in a world that demands joy might not be in finding more joy, but in finding the courage to be honest, to refuse to be penalized for daring to be sad like a human being.